Is true malach go bhfuil faoin tábhair seo bhfuil an céad leis amsa cúpla le rá atach ach simar atá sé is ábhar tábhair a ré don winter modál cantar. Fiúháin é sin, níl sam an lóré an dispórach seo ceapan go bhfuil gá ar phróisis eile chun muid ar fád i hosúil go rinne muid chuileród agus bhí deis agan a dhéanamh chun tionchar an storm a leidú agus daoine a chairú. While I welcome the opportunity to participate in the debate, I'm not wholly certain that it's the sufficient mechanism in terms of the requirement we have to review the preparation and the response of the state to the impact and the effect of Storm Éowyn. I believe that a more forensic review is required of both the preparation and the response of the state, and indeed of all state agencies that hold some responsibility for such events. Everyone appears to accept that there are lessons to be learned. During the term of the last Dáil, there was a joint committee on environment and climate action. I would expect a committee with a similar responsibility to be established for this Dáil term, and I believe that that committee should undertake a full review and appraisal of the state's preparation and the state's response to Storm Éowyn, to include extending invitations to all those state bodies and agencies who were involved in the preparation, response and remediation work. Tuisig chulaigine sa tír gur ag cheann wasa I gonawara bhí taféid ar an gála gaoithe is láidir as sa storm seo. Ní rud anmh sin. Everyone is aware that at Mace Head in Carna it recorded the highest gusts of wind and also the highest sustained wind speed during the storm. However, this is not a unique occurrence. Of the 5 storms this country has suffered this winter, Mace Head has recorded the highest gust speed and highest sustained wind speed of 3 of them. Similarly, in 2024, Mace Head recorded 50% of the highest wind speeds recorded, and the other weather stations along the west coast were among the others recorded similarly. All the evidence points to one region of the country being at greater exposure and greater risk to the impact of climate change. I look forward to the EPA concluding its National Climate Change Risk Assessment, expected to be finalised by the end of Q1 2025, and this assessment aims to assist in climate change adaptation and mitigation. I'm hopeful that it will reflect on the areas of the country that are most susceptible to the most detrimental impacts of storms. Of all the infrastructure that failed as a result of the storm, possibly the one that caused the greatest concern was the failure on behalf of some mobile phone customers to be able to contact emergency services. I contacted the Department of Communications, who advised that the emergency call answering service operated by BT on behalf of the Minister remained fully functional during the storm. And the issue in regard to contacting the emergency service is to do with network coverage. If one's own subscriber is unavailable, then all other available networks, mobile networks, can be fallen back on in order to facilitate emergency calls. This fallback facility is controlled by the subscriber's phone. We know that failed, and I think that if all the lessons that we need to learn is how to make sure that we maintain such services in the event of power going at the mass. If the lack of communication infrastructure caused concern, the impact of the storm that caused greatest frustration, and indeed growing frustration still, is the continued absence of power. The ESB reported that there were some 10,000 faults on their transmission network. Not surprisingly, as we've heard already, most of the faults were suffered in the part of the country where the storm had its greatest impact. The absence of power has caused real hardship for people across the community. Earlier I remarked on the meteorological data that the state possesses on the region of the country that is most exposed to weather events. Applying appropriate mitigation and resilience measures to the electrical grid at this location should be prioritised. Over the course of the past fortnight, the ESB will have gathered significant data on the faults which occurred. As outlined earlier by many speakers, many of the faults were caused by the failure to adequately manage trees. In one conversation I was party to, Cloncorla, one ESB operative indicated that by his estimation, between 65 and 70% of faults were being caused by the impact of trees that fell on transmission lines. And there appears to me from legislation already to be no impediment to the ESB to manage this better. Section 98 of the ESB Act 1927, as amended by Section 45 of the Electricity Regulation Act, empowers the ESB to cut any trees, shrubs or hedge which obstructs or interferes with electrical wires. And I heard Minister Healy-Rae and indeed Minister Hayden discuss this earlier, and look forward to greater measures to make sure that they address this.
Thank you, Deputy.